Okay, so today we're going to look at the circular business models BMT number 8. So, before we get into the circular business models, we have to understand what traditional business models or these traditional business values actually go. So, traditionally, businesses follow this linear model, okay? It's only concerned about the cost of resources. So, this linear model of production, inputs, production, outputs, bang. Linear model. It focuses on producing, selling, and then throwing away any excess, okay? And there's no going back. So it's just linear, just keeps going forward, keeps going forward. So this linear model and this kind of focus on production, selling, throwing away excess has no consideration of environmental impacts. And in our new world wherein the environment is becoming a pressing issue, this is why circular business models have been invented, because our traditional business values are very linear and they're very environmentally impactful. So an example is like hotel buffets. Think about it. When you go to a hotel buffet, okay, and everyone leaves, by the time everyone's done, there's still plentiful excess of food which they just throw away, which has insanely negative impacts on the environment. So, by looking at that, a circular business model is just a decision-making tool that focuses on the environmental impacts of a business by minimizing its waste. Okay, that is according to circular business model, that is the best way to reduce your environmental impacts by minimizing your waste. So, what are the types of CBMs that we're going to be looking at? Firstly, we're going to be looking at circular supply models, then resource recovery models, product life extension models, sharing models, product service system models. These are all the 5 types of circular business models that we cover in our IB syllabus. And once again, their main goal is to minimize waste and reduce environmental impacts. Yep. Okay, so now we can get a closer dive into actually the different types of CBM models we have. So firstly, as I said before, we have this circular supply model, okay? A circular supply model is this idea on creating a closed loop system where products are designed for durability, okay, reliability, and are continuously reused, okay? So let's look at keywords over here. Closed loop systems, okay, for durability, reliability, and are continuously reused, okay? It focuses on the sense of replacing finite resources with a lot more renewable, recyclable, and biodegradable resources, okay? So it's this idea of this production of process of production of products where you use a lot more recycled materials, and the products itself are a lot more recyclable, a lot more durable, and able to be used for a much longer time, so that it is less harmful to the environment and you have to make less. So this is actually more profitable in the long term as the earth begins to become scarce in resources, because our resources are finite right now, okay? So in the future, eventually our resources become scarce. So this idea of replacing finite resources with renewable, recyclable, okay, biodegradable resources just helps like over and combat that, okay? To actually give you this almost infinite resource, because it's now renewable, recyclable, you can keep using it again and again and again. So like big example for a circular supply model is Patagonia, okay? Patagonia has implemented so many strategies to help reduce their waste and in their environmental impact. So they use renewable energies in some of their stores and also a lot of their factories, okay? Which helps replace their finite resources, okay, with more renewable resources. And they also make garments out of recycled materials like plastic bottles. They're recycling over here. They're being renewable over here. And they're just essentially enhancing the effects of a circular supply model. Secondly, we have the resource recovery model. It is this model that aims to reuse resource output by reprocessing waste material into new usable material. So it is turning waste into basically new usable material, and it's kind of the whole essence of recycling. So waste comes in here, and then you turn it into usable material, which turns into waste again, and you can just try reuse again and recycle. It is literally just essentially recycling, all right? So when we look at resource recovery models, like the two most like basic examples of resource recovery models is cradle to cradle design and manufacturing, and then this idea of industrial symbiosis. Now we should know cradle to cradle from 5.3 of lean production methods, and it's this sustainable method of production of products that can be reprocessed into new resources at the end of their product life cycle. That is meant to be biodegradable, but that is meant to be good for the environment, okay, and sustainable. Now, this industrial symbiosis, if you are taking the May 2026 exam, this is very important to you because the premise of paper 1 is built around industrial symbiosis. Industrial symbiosis is this one industry's byproducts or waste are turned into raw materials for another industry. So for our paper 1, we have this company, this concrete producer, okay, who goes through a lot of e-waste in order to get gold. This e-waste is the waste, okay? That is the waste of another industry. And them going through all of that e-waste turns it into gold. That is the essence of an industrial symbiosis. They are basically using industrial symbiosis to go through the waste, okay, of another industry, so the electrical industries when they make electrical components, and they use that as their raw materials to make gold. That is the entire premise of the paper 1 for May 2026. So yeah, those are those two. Okay, so now we have product plus life extension model. It can say either way. So this product or life extension model is the extension of a product's life cycle to reduce the finite resources that is needed to actually produce these products. So this is basically this idea where you extend a product's life cycle, so you have to use less resources to make the product again. And it's like businesses, this is good because businesses can prevent products being thrown away, okay? And they can also reduce the need to use scarce resources in production, okay? So another example, Patagonia comes in again, where Worn Wear is this campaign they use that allows customers to trade products for repairs or discounts, okay? So then this keeps old clothing in use for longer and reduces the need to resources to make new products. Another one's like Apple's trade-in system. They take in your phone, they give you cheaper prices on your next phone you buy. But in that phone, they might use the same chip in another phone. They might just repair the chip, use it somewhere else. Because then now their resources are not as scarce and they're not needing to use new resources and new materials every single time. So that is the essence of a product life extension model, okay? Now we have sharing models, okay? These are services where customers share products rather than owning it themselves, all right? This basically relies on products that have low ownership or what do you call it, like usage rates. So like a car is not something, okay, a lot of people own cars, but not everyone owns a car. So Uber is a great example of a sharing model. A house as well, maybe when you're going on a vacation, okay? Airbnb. These are stuff that you share with everyone else on the platform, but you don't own it yourself, except the people working, obviously. So the benefits of this is it facilitates the sharing of underused products, okay? And not just underused, but it facilitates the sharing of products in general, which is greatly beneficial for the environment, especially Uber, because now you're reducing the amount of cost that people spend on their own private cars, especially with Uber Pool. And secondly, you reduce the demand for resources as well, because since there is Uber and there's Airbnb, there's no need for me to buy an extra car for myself when there's Uber available where the resources have already been used. So I don't need to get extra resources from my own car. Third, it just reduces the environmental burdens, okay? Because of this sharing and this reduced demand of resources. So now we have the last one, product service system model, okay? This might get a little complex, so just listen for a minute. This is the servitization of a thing, of a product that offers the service of a product rather than the product itself. So this is like Netflix, okay? That offers you the service of watching a movie, but it doesn't offer you the actual movie. You don't get rights to the movie, you don't get to see it in the film. Spotify, you don't get rights to the song, you don't get rights to any of this. You just get the option to hear it, the service to hear it. You're not getting access to their platform, you're just getting offered the service. And this basically creates incentives to use environmentally friendly designs, okay, which are more efficient to use and thus reduce resource demand and is greater for the environment as well. So yeah, we've covered all of them. Circular supply models, resource recovery models, product life extension, sharing models, product service system models, and that is circular business models. Okay, so this is just the final quick evaluation of circular business models. So firstly, the advantages is that essentially it does what it aims to do, okay? It reduces your environmental footprint, okay? And this is really good for your business because it's very good for the earth, not just a business standpoint as well. Long-term sustainability is also a key aspect, okay? And not just environmental sustainability, but resource sustainability as well. As we were saying in these circular supply models and these resource recovery models, okay, and these product life extension models, you are able to have your resources a lot more longer, so that when resources actually do become scarce, when our finite resources become scarce, you have something very sustainable to rely on rather than everyone else. So this essentially improves your brand image because it is a sense of CSR. You can see it as a CSR because this is a full corporate social responsibility to be a lot more sustainable and a lot more ethical in regards to the environment. And fourth, it attracts skilled and local employees because they'll get that sense of self-esteem, motivation in your business, because they know they're working for something that is actually beneficial to the world, as it's environmentally beneficial. So it just helps motivate employees, and it attracts skilled, high-skilled employees and local employees as well. And then it also provides you as competitive advantages. Your sustainability itself is a competitive advantage over other businesses, okay? And is a reason why you should be picked over others. So, however, it's not entirely perfect, okay? It's quite expensive to change the circular business model in the short term, okay? There's lots of initial costs, lots of costs to do with changes, and all of this change of operations is very expensive in the short term, which means it is not that perfect if you're depending on your financial situation. Secondly, customers will have to incur higher prices because these processes are a lot extra, okay, than the normal traditional linear values, okay? So these will have to incur high prices so you can actually make a profit. Third, you lose your access to economies of scale, and this is quite big because economies of scale are essential for businesses when they grow, and it's one of the biggest advantages you get as a growing business. But as you follow more circular business models, you lose this economies of scale because you're reducing the amount of actual resources you need and stuff like that, and you're trying to be more sustainable. Fourth, it is kind of hard to adopt a circular business model without government intervention because, as I said, it is quite costly. So if your government is not that keen into it, or you don't have that many subsidies from your government, it's going to be very hard to adopt without that actual help. And lastly, your customers may not forego this sense of loss of quality or performance in the short term over this long term. They want their short term needs satisfied, so they may not stay with you in the short term because when you start to recycle materials, there is a chance or potential where quality and performance decreases. So your customers want their short term needs satisfied, which they may not forego just for the benefit of the long term. So that is all of circular business models, BMTA.